Welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. Today, let's talk about perfectionism is a lie. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. My name is Kale Houser. Thank you for joining me today. Hey, if you have not, please like and subscribe. If you haven't had a chance to leave a comment yet, I would love to hear from you. And comments, help the channel grow, help it get to more people so they can kind of learn and discover this channel and maybe find that one episode and that one little topic that is a game changer for them in their business. And that's kind of my ultimate goal for that. So if you don't mind, I would very much appreciate it. But today I wanted to talk about this concept of perfectionism, and specifically that the idea or the quote unquote, the reality of perfectionism is a lie. And this came from what is quickly becoming one of my favorite audiobooks, and that is the 10X Mentor audiobook put on by Grant Cardone. It's his latest one. I believe it is only as an audiobook. He has not published it, as far as I'm aware, to this date. And as we're going through it, he started kind of this, I don't know if rant is the right word, but certainly this observation of people that claim to be perfectionists. And he's like, perfectionism is a lie. Like, it's a total joke. It's an excuse for a lot of underlying issues. And at one point, whichever psychiatrist, psychologist, grad student coined this term of perfectionism being a character trait in people, it's really just an indicator, an excuse for some other underlying behavior or insecurity or action or whatever it is that's causing them to be perfectionists, to not submit the paper, to not finish the project, to not complete the dotting the I's and crossing the T's on the thing in the name of, it's not perfect yet. I'm a perfectionist. And they use this as an excuse for what is really at its base level procrastination. Yeah, you heard me right. Perfectionism is an excuse and a lie that is really just procrastination. It's really just an excuse for not getting it done for some other reason. And it's not because you have to make it perfect. That's just not the case. And this reminds me a lot of, I think I was in Squadron Officer School many years ago, which is a phenomenal program, and I really like that the Air Force does it. It's an opportunity for those of you that are not familiar, and all the branches have some sort of equivalent of it, but for us it was called SOS, which is Squadron Officer School, and it's where you as a captain, so an O3, which for most people, if they came in as a straight officer, they've been in the Air Force from anywhere between like 4 to 8 years or 5 to 8 years, somewhere in that range, and they had an opportunity to go to Squadron Officer School. And the intent of it is to prepare younger officers as they start moving into positions where they're legitimately in command of some smaller element, right? They become squadron commanders or young unit commanders or something of that nature. And it's kind of that first official professional education that is designed to give them the tools and the mindset of moving out of being, technical experts, whether it be a pilot or a finance officer, moving out of that technical expertise mentality into the, okay, I'm going to be a leader and commander of people in my organization. And it's phenomenal because there's no other, at least at that level, there's no other opportunity or platform, or I don't know what the right word is for it, but there's no other opportunity to get put in front of and listen to so many other generals, because a large part of it is they bring in all these guest speakers, which are all usually generals of some sort. Like I think for ours, we had the vice commander of Pacific Command. So that's the guy, the second in charge behind the commander. He's a 3-star general that's in charge of all of the Pacific Air Forces. And he, and as with most of those titles, they wear other hats and they do other things. But so from that standpoint, it's just phenomenal to hear from all those different senior leaders and their perspective. But one of the presenters during that time at SOS, which by the way was just phenomenal because it's really just a vacation for guys and gals that have been grinding and doing their lieutenant years and advancing in rank and doing their thing to kind of come together. And yes, it's a professional military school, but it's also you live in a dorm and you have it's like a typical work week kind of thing, Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 3:30 or something, and then the rest of the time you're just out and about doing whatever, hanging out and having fun while you're away from your job. Like that's your job while you're there. Anyway, but one of the presenters had talked about this was a general. When they were younger, they were serving a general. And I think he was saying that he was one of the speech writers for this general, because this general was, in the public eye a lot and had to do speeches and things. And one of the things he learned and was a practice of that general that he served as a younger officer at the time was anytime he would write a speech, the general would essentially turn it back to him and say, do a rewrite. And the guy's like, oh, okay, goes back, takes another day, turns in the next day, revision 2, the general theoretically was reading it and didn't like something, because he never offered the critique of like, oh, fix this, change this, or, talk more about this topic, right? As maybe a feedback would be desired from a speechwriter or to a speechwriter from the subject that's giving the speech. But I know it would just be like, here, this needs a rewrite, this needs a rewrite. And he said this happened every time. Like, this general never accepted the speech on the first or even the second, third. And he says typically it was between 5 and 7 rewrites of every speech that this young officer had given, who is now a general himself. So he's relating the story of his younger years. But he said he came to find out later, and I don't remember exactly how much later, if it was like after he had stopped working for this general or if it was while he was in service to this general, but the general never even read it. Never even read the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, or sixth drafts of the speeches that this young officer was writing for the general until the 7th, because he knew this general had this practice of when you challenge somebody, they'll always do better. And this story was brought back to my mind as I heard this from Grant Cardone in his audiobook, 10X Mentor, about perfectionism being a lie. Because it wasn't something that general to his staff or this young officer was saying, no, I need this speech perfect. It wasn't, I'm not accepting this because it's not perfect. It was not accepting it because you can do better, which is a different take on this, because perfectionism, I'm going to screw that word up this whole podcast, so bear with me, and I apologize for that. But perfectionism really is a character trait we put on ourselves, and we use it as an explanation for our own shortcomings to other people when we have failed to meet some mark, some timeline, deadline, some project completion date, whatever that is, or procrastinated at something is like, oh yeah, I just couldn't turn that in because it wasn't perfect. Like there's improvements to be made or things like that. But really, they're just excuses, man. Grant Cardone goes on to use an example of this gentleman that he ran into that was writing a book. Right? A lot of us have at one point or another in our lifetimes been like, man, I should write a book. Like I've got these experiences, or I'm really passionate about this subject, or maybe you want to write the next, dragon novel of some sort, this fiction thing, or you want to write the research of some Civil War battle. You're a history buff, or World War II battle, something in our history that you want to provide your take on after your research stuff, right? Some passion, and you've said like, I want to write this book. But writing a book is, it can be hard. It's daunting. It's daunting in the fact of you think you have to be perfect. You think you have to provide this amazing American, the classic American novel, right? Some Hemingway thing or J.K. Rowling, obviously not American, but, some massively successful, because that's what we use as our examples of like, oh, these are amazing examples and I want to be like that, but I can't do it because it's not perfect and I'll never be perfect. And we let that stop us. And even though in this example that Grant Cardone was using, this gentleman that had been writing, I think he said for 8 years he'd been writing a book, quote unquote, writing this book and hadn't finished. And Grant Cardone was like, and I think this gentleman had used this example of, well, it's not perfect and it's not done. And Grant Cardone's like, you know what? If you are done, I think he said like in a week or by the end of this week or something, I will promote your book on my Instagram, which if you know anything about Grant Cardone's Instagram, it's fairly large and his audience is fairly large, and anything he promotes on it is going to get some traction, whether it be a new author or a product or anything, right? Because that's just who he is. He's an influencer on Instagram and pretty much every other social media platform. And lo and behold, what did the guy do? He'd been taking 8 years to finish his book. And he didn't say what the book was about or anything like that, or who the guy was. You could probably go back to Grant Cardone's Instagram and find it. But the guy had it done in 3 days. Here you go. You know why? Because he was incentivized, because he had a reason to finish, and he got out of his own way and stopped making excuses of why he couldn't finish the thing for perfectionism, right? Because the reality was he was just procrastinating. He was prioritizing other things. When it was a lack of putting that thing, in this case, writing the book, at the top of the list of prioritization and getting it done. It had nothing to do with, oh, is this the exact syntax to use in this sentence? Is this the right grammar for all this? Am I citing my sources according to the most perfect bibliography standardizations? I forget what it is, like APA or whatever they are nowadays. It's been a while since I did my dissertation, but the point being is that for whatever reason, that person in this example hadn't been doing it for the excuse of perfectionism, like it's not good enough. And then what it comes down to, besides the laziness, the lack of prioritization, and the procrastination, is it also could just be that you're kind of a control freak, right? Your perfectionism is a publicly accepted term for you just being a control freak, a micromanager, somebody that can't just let things go, and you have to absolutely control everything. And by virtue of that, it just never gets completed, right? It never happens. So I wanted to bring that to your attention, especially if you are one of these people. And as entrepreneurs and as business owners, especially if you started your own business, we can easily fall into this because we do want things to be perfect, quote unquote perfect. Well, if no one's told you this recently, or if you've never heard this before, nothing is perfect. There are no perfect businesses out there. The most successful businesses on the planet are not perfect. They make mistakes. They have setbacks. They have failures. They have processes that they go back and continually improve and make corrections to because of some shortcoming, or as they expand, it no longer fits. There's no perfect solution to everything. So if that is you and your mindset of like that's stopping you from doing something or completing tasks or completing projects because you feel they're not perfect, well, here's the tough love. It's time to get over yourself. It's time to get over your own ego, get over your own fear, whatever it may be, of that moving forward, and just kind of do it and adjust. Get the feedback you need as you put it out into your market, as you make that completion and you get that direct or indirect feedback, and then you make adjustments and you go again, you alter, you adapt, you overcome, all those types of things the Marine Corps say, right? So I really wanted to encourage you, if there's something that you have been putting off in the name of trying to make it perfect, stop. Look at it and go, all right, is this close enough? Is this going to get me at least on the path to my desired result? There's another book out there, Neil, I forget what it is, but done beats perfect every single time. Something that's put out in the marketplace is 1,000% better than something that never makes it to the marketplace, but has the potential to be perfect, right? The imperfect thing that's available is much better than the perfect thing that no one ever sees. Does that make sense? So yeah, make sure if this is you, do an honest assessment. Are you just procrastinating? Do you have a fear of what people are just going to say, and those are other things that are stopping you from completing it in the name of not being perfect? Or is it something that you just can't release control of, and you're holding on to it in order to try to make it perfect and not allowing other people to critique it? Yeah. But the reality is, screw them. Just do what you need to do for your thing, because it is your project, and make it yours. So it is available to people, and you can adjust and make it better down the road. Cool. So it makes sense. Yeah. So perfectionism, it's a lie. If people are telling you that in their excuse to you, maybe you are the business owner and your employees or somebody on your team is telling you that, oh, I haven't completed that because there's more work to be done on, or it's not quite perfect. Then you need to have this talk with them directly and say, it's never going to be perfect. I didn't ask for perfection. So it's time to put forth your best effort. Yes, if that may require some rewrites or something of that nature, but it's time to put forth your best effort. And then we'll go from there and see what we need to change and if it meets our needs or not. Easy as that. Make sense? All right. Thank you so much for joining me. No matter where you are at in the world, have a fantastic afternoon. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.